there, class. My name's Emily, and today I'm going to speak to you about JFK's inaugural speech and analyze the different characteristics of his speech. But before we start that, I would like you to imagine with me, close your eyes if it's easier to, that it's 1961, January 20th. Kennedy is just about to make his inaugural speech, and you're shoulder to shoulder with fellow Americans who are just as excited about his presidency as you are. We're excited, we can't wait to hear what this man has to say, and he starts speaking, and all you hear is conviction, power, trustworthy. Well, today, I'm going to talk to you why you might have had those feelings, and as watching his speech, I'm kind of thinking to myself, is this any different than any other speaker? Are presidents to speak differently and more controlled than if I were in a classroom setting, if I was with a friend, if I was a researcher on TED Talks presenting my information? It's a little more in a box, and we'll go into that further right now. We're going to be talking today about his voice, the gestures he used, and the visual aids that were or were not there. So to start off with voice, according to McNeil in the online article titled, "Do You Speak Presidential?" he describes Kennedy's voice as R-less, which means that Kennedy removed the R's from most of the words that he pronounced, which can be taken as Boston elite, which is either seen as elite, well-educated, and trustworthy, which is what it came off with Kennedy, which is lucky because sometimes removing your R's from your speech can come off as uneducated and untrustworthy. Kennedy during his speech also used a great slow-paced rate. He didn't speak too fast or too slow, and he paused at the appropriate times, I do believe. He paused to look down at his card and paused for emphasis on certain points. Finally, I believe because of the rate that he was speaking, he had such conviction and power behind his words. He was meaningful and powerful, really making you believe what he was going to do for the future was going to change. But not only is voice important in a speech, so are the gestures that the speaker uses. The gestures that Kennedy used were very minimal. He was at his pedestal and he had this box of area that he didn't really leave. He had his arms here, his cards in front of him, which is okay, but every once in a while when he really meant it, was really passionate about what he was saying, you could tell his hand was pounding on the pedestal, which was very interesting to me. But he didn't really move outside of this box that he had for himself. He wasn't out here, his arms weren't getting crazy, and they weren't getting too distracting, which I think is very beneficial and important with a presidential speaker. Now, according to Carol Goman from Forbes.com, in the online article titled, "Great Leaders Talk with Their Hands," it states that trust is established through congruence, that perfect alignment between what is being said and the body language that accompanies it. If a speaker's gestures are not in full alignment with the spoken words, the audience consciously or subconsciously perceives duplicacy, uncertainty, or internal conflict, which is why I think that presidential speaking is a little bit different than other speakers. See, if my hand movements are getting a little too crazy, that's okay. I'm not promising a nation things. But if he gets a little too crazy with his words and his gestures, people are going to get distracted and feel really uncertain. So that's why I think they keep it in the box compared to other type of speakers. They're going to keep their hands on the pedestal and use other hand movements, which I find very interesting. Now, not only are gestures very important, but how people visually see you, the visual aids that are used. Now, this is very interesting because even now, presidents during speeches, during presidential speeches, inaugural speeches, don't have a lot of visual aids, which is okay because that could get really distracting compared to other speeches that would need it in the background to help prove my point and use as graphics for interesting visual stimulation. Now, according to the UMC team, in the article titled "Using Visual Aids," they state visual aids can powerfully help the effectiveness of a speech. Many speeches benefit from having objects, images, key quotes, or data in a clear, dramatic fashion. Now, just because visual aids weren't overly used in the inaugural speeches isn't a bad thing, because I think that would have taken away. People would be distracted by a screen here, by a screen here, by graphics here. Instead, they're listening to the man who is about to lead our country, and I find that very important. In other speeches, such as my own or future research speeches, yes, I do believe visual aids are important, but the visual aid of him on his pedestal in all the simplicity, I think, worked wonderfully. So to bring everything together today, I spoke about JFK's inaugural speech. I talked about the voice qualities he had, the gestures used, and the lack of visual aids, or what simple visual aids that were used, and how it benefited him, and how it helped put forward the fact that presidential speeches are different than everyday speeches or research speeches, and that's okay, and it's also interesting how they do so. But I want you to take a second and think about this. What if presidential speeches had all these visual aids? What if it was different? Would you still be able to pay attention and digest what they were saying in all of its importance and power, and digest the same conviction as if there was a video or something else going on behind them? For me, I don't think so. But today, that's going to be all. Thank you for listening.